You know what? Fuck it. I don't even feel like doing an intro song. I don't even feel like putting together a thumbnail. Fuck it. There, that's perfect. That's great. Actually, that is fantastic. I should just do it like this every day. Just not even put the effort into the making a thumbnail, because that takes time. I gotta go onto a different computer and find all the pictures I want and fucking put them together in a way that looks half decent. And I'm slightly distracted right now because I knocked a bunch of important screws over, and I'm trying to make sure I have them all, because I have just an ungodly amount of stuff piled up on my desk here. Just clothes, because I've been a lazy prick these last few days. That's okay. That's okay, because today, there we go. Today, am I even hitting yellow? No, I'm not. There we go. That's like kind of better, I guess. I don't know. Today, I just wanted to talk on again a couple more little news things that I saw, but I had other stuff that I was thinking of earlier in the day. And by the time I make it home, of course, that's all just slipped my fucking mind. It's like, well, let's just get right into it, I guess. Get this earbud out. The first thing, I believe, was Donald Trump over here. President Trump is filing a lawsuit against the New York Slimes for $15 billion. Now, the story itself, I don't really care about. It just seems like, yeah, that's something he would do. It's probably not going to go anywhere, considering the fact that it's probably going to take place in New York. You know, they all hate him, so why would they even pay it any mind? But it's not the story itself that what interested me. It's kind of what it implies. Trump says he's filing a lawsuit against the Slimes, alleging defamation and accusing the outlet of being a virtual mouthpiece for the Democratic Party. I mean, I just find it interesting that he would single that out, because in reality, pretty much every media outlet, whether it's mainstream or not. What the fuck was that noise? That sounded like a transformer was about to blow up in my neighborhood. That was loud. I'm surprised it didn't get picked up. I would have heard it through my headphones here. He's accusing them, and seemingly only them, whereas, I mean, that's pretty much all media, whether intentionally or not. Obviously, the bigger outlets, the mainstream outlets, CNN, ABC, MSNBC, fucking Fox, even. I wouldn't say that they're directly mouthpieces for the Democrats. In a sense, they are, though. I think it is controlled opposition, absolutely. But that even smaller outlets, like a Revolver, or just any independent thing you could think of, they're still doing the bidding of what the politicians want. the stories they talk about, whether it's for the narrative or against the narrative, it's still fulfilling its role. And I would say that, the Slimes and CNN, who I'm reading this article on, they're definitely more direct and intentional with being the propaganda arm of the government, of the Democrats, more or less, but really just the government, because it's, you know, two sides of the same coin. I've talked about this before. I feel like a lot of people have had this idea, but it gets brushed aside because we get caught up in the whole left versus right thing, and we really believe there are two sides to this when it's like a piece of paper. There's two sides to it, but it's the same fucking thing. Either way, I mean, I'll read these news stories and I'll comment on them. And then I'll come on here now and say that, all the news outlets are just lying to you and it's all propaganda, everything's fake. And it's like, well, why do you believe it then? Why are you on here talking about this shit? I don't know, because it's fun. Keep in mind, any story I actually talk about, anything I bring up, does not necessarily mean I'm believing what's being said. I can read a story and comment on it as if it were true. Just like I can watch a movie and, for the sake of immersion, or play a video game for the sake of immersion, comment on it as though what's happening is true, when in reality I know that I'm playing a game or watching something that's completely contrived. It's fabricated for my consumption, right? A movie is something that is produced and put together so that they can make money, but it's so that you can watch it and consume it and hopefully enjoy it, right? Well, I would go so far as to say that all of these news stories, everything, the 24-hour news cycle, a lot of this stuff is prefabricated in a sense. And I'm not saying that things don't really happen in the world and that news companies and reporters and stuff don't actually go and gather information about events in the world and then give it to you. I'm not saying everything is staged. I'm not saying that, oh, the Charlie Kirk thing was staged, although who knows, it could have been. I'm not saying that. What's the other one that was in the fucking news today? I don't know. I thought I had it pulled up on here. I guess I don't. I'm not saying that everything is prefabricated and that we're just sitting here, with the fucking mouth open in front of the TV so it can just spoon feed you whatever the hell it wants. But there definitely is an aspect of that. And I would say that pretty much every single news outlet, every single, like I said, even down to the lesser known ones, like I mentioned Revolver. I can't think of really any others, because I mean, I get whatever Google fucking feeds me, honestly. Even when doing this show, I don't really prepare for it in that, like, I'm going out and looking for, like, news articles. I don't go research into anything. I just look at what comes up, whatever they show me, and I talk about it. Like a good little consumer. Like the epitome of what I'm talking about today. I guess I'm kind of living it through this show. But that's okay. Another part of what I found interesting about this story, like I said, it's not the story itself. I could care less if Trump wins or loses this case. I think the New York Times is going to be I mean, they're losing money either way. Nobody really takes them seriously anymore. At least I would say nobody on the right side of a worldview takes them seriously. People on the wrong, I mean, left side of the worldview might take them seriously, but I don't. You usually have to bypass their paywall to read any of their stuff, and every time I've done that, I've read it like, this is just slop. This is the most contrived fucking bullshit. People really believe this when they read it? People actually pay to read this stuff? I will never pay for any news whatsoever. That's ridiculous that all these news sites want you to pay money to access their often skewed or outright lies, to access their information, which is all of questionable validity to start with. And they want to take your money so they can lie to you. That's amazing to me, honestly. And people fall for it. Clearly it works. More and more sites are having paywalls. I'm seeing local news sites with paywalls. I have a VPN, and whenever I turn it on to various locations, some of the news sites that come up on the Discover are local news, local to the location of my VPN. And I've done it in many different states. Sometimes I go Canada, sometimes I go UK, just to see what will be thrown at me. Well, not just to do. I use the VPN all the time, and I change up. I've never used the location and said, what's going on here? Let me go check the news. But if it happens to be on and I check, I'll click on a site and it's a local news site. You know, like WTLA 15 or whatever, Fox or whatever little affiliate channel has their own website. And you gotta pay to get just shit news that no one cares about, like, oh, they're painting over gay crosswalks, or firefighters took a cat out of a tree. Like, you shouldn't have to pay to fucking get such. You shouldn't even have to pay for news that is relevant to the whole country, or let alone the whole world. Which I would say that this Charlie Kirk thing is definitely a global phenomenon at this point. I wouldn't even pay for news about that. If it got to the point where I couldn't go on any website and get any news without paying, when they get to that level where everything's going to be subscription based, and we're very fast approaching a world where essentially pretty much every aspect of your life is going to be a subscription based thing that you're going to have to pay money for. I mean, I'm sure they'll end up doing it with stuff like fucking food. I mean, you're already paying for your food, but it'll be in a sense where unless you're paying a yearly or monthly whatever subscription, you can't even go to the store to then pay more money for the food. Kind of like how Sam's Club is. Wouldn't surprise me if soon regular grocery stores start going by that same business model. But anyway, that's not what I went off on a little tangent, as I tend to do. And I'm going to probably stay a little calmer today, because for one, I'm not drinking. And for two, well, I'm not drinking. I thought I had a second reason there. I don't. Let's just say reason number two, I'm retarded. We can run with that. The suit is the latest example of what First Amendment experts. What is a First Amendment expert? Am I a First Amendment expert? I mean, I'm using my First Amendment on a platform. I say generally whatever the hell I want, whenever the hell I want. I'm not going to go tell my boss to go fuck himself, but I will tell him if he's doing something wrong as it pertains to the job. I've actually didn't, I won't say I got into it with my boss, but I did kind of tell him, like, look, this is stupid. You need to do something about this because it's causing me and others to not be able to effectively do what we're supposed to do. And he understood where I was coming from because I wasn't a dick about it. Does that make me a First Amendment expert? Because I exercised my speech in a situation where it could have very well cost me my job, and it didn't? What would constitute a First Amendment expert? Experts have described as a presidential strategy to silence critical news coverage and curb free speech. Silence critical news coverage? Well, wait a minute, CNN. Why would you put it that way? Do you think that the New York Times is critical news coverage? Wouldn't CNN want you to believe that the only critical news coverage is CNN? Critical news coverage? Critical News Network. They could just call themselves that from now on. Maybe they're just being nice to New York Slimes. And curb free speech is another phrase there that I'm not sure that these people are aware of their hypocrisy. I'm not saying CNN as a whole. Oh, it's written by Brian Stelter. That guy's a complete tool. Makes sense. I don't think he realizes how ironic and, in a sense, hypocritical that coming from the worldview, coming from the ideological paradigm that he comes from, to say that, well, I guess it's the First Amendment experts that are describing it this way, but to give that description validity by putting it in your news story, curb free speech. I personally don't think it's a bad thing to curb free speech. I'm not a free speech absolutist. I think there are things that people should not be allowed to say, at least not in any grand public forum. I don't think that you should be arrested for you're hanging out with your buddies and you say something. They shouldn't be able to go and, report you and get you arrested for it. But I do think that there should be limits on expression in the public sphere. That's just me. And I'd have people on both sides of the political spectrum taking issue with that. But to that I say, come at me. I mean, I'll wreck you and I'll wreck the guy that hates you, both at the same time. The Committee to Protect Journalists, that's a committee. These types of defamation suits send a chilling message and can entangle news media in time-consuming and costly legal processes. Good. It's about time that news media starts getting entangled in things that could possibly slow them down and maybe kind of rein them in a little on their propaganda and their absolute lies and, like I said, skewed information, things that are presented one way to elicit an emotional response from the news consumer. Yeah, I'm honestly, I would be for, I don't know exactly what, well, Trump in the lawsuit is about defamation, and I don't really care if it defames Trump. That's his problem. But the fact that they're just liars and they need to be held accountable for those lies, And I would say, well, people will say, don't they have every right to say whatever they want on the news? They don't have to tell you the truth. There's no law that says they have to. I mean, clearly there isn't, because they've been lying to you since the fucking 60s, man. Probably even before that. I just know Walter Cronkite wasn't all he was cronked up to be. The defamation suit against the Times also names book publisher Penguin Random House and 4 Times reporters, 2 of whom wrote a book for Penguin titled Lucky Loser: How Trump Squandered His Father's Fortune and Created the Illusion of Success. Well, I mean, if it is slandering, if there's absolute lies in the book, then they should be... If the person who the book's about catches wind of it, yeah, he should be able to have that, the book taken down or be paid restitution. I mean, I personally would handle it a different way, but I'm not Donald Trump. It lacks any legitimate legal claims and instead is an attempt to stifle and discourage independent reporting. Yeah. We will continue to pursue the facts without fear or favor. Well, I mean, that's just what they want you to think, right? The news. It's all about the facts. Well, maybe it is, but it's not about the truth. And there is a difference. Didn't Biden say truth over facts? Which obviously he did not know what he was saying when he said it. But it's almost like something else was speaking through him, because I agree. I would rather seek the truth than seek facts. Because facts can be manipulated. Facts can be presented in various ways. Facts can be used to hide truth. Facts are like a tool, whereas truth cannot be manipulated. It cannot be used to hide itself. That would just be silly and circular. And one thing's for sure, the news, CNN has their little ad here, reliable sources with Brian Stelter. Okay. Misinformation, conspiracy theories, propaganda. Well, at least they're being honest about what they are. Separate fact from fiction in CNN's reliable sources newsletter. Yeah, so separate fact from fiction. Everything you read in that newsletter, it's misinformation, conspiracy theories, and propaganda. If I could show you this on the screen so you could see exactly how it's set up here. Because it's almost like they're just hiding it in plain sight. What else do we got here? I don't want to talk about this Trump shit. None of my other 3 things have to do with Trump. Yes, now the Charlie Kirk. There was something in this article that I read that made me want to bring it up here. I'll have to find it though. There's a picture of the kid that murdered Kirk wearing a turtle suit in his mugshot. If you don't know what that is, it's basically a big thing that they put you in to stop you from being able to harm yourself, because they think that this kid's probably going to try something. Which I'm sure he will. He's a coward, but at least he was man enough to turn himself in. I'm sure his father would have, or somebody that he told would have eventually ratted on him. But he was actually man enough to go in there himself. I'll give him that much. I want to find what it was I wanted to talk about in here. Yes. Prosecutors are seeking the death penalty. Robinson, who was wearing a vest designed to stop self-harm. I don't know if it's actually called a turtle suit. That's just when I was a kid and I went to juvenile, they did bring someone in the turtle suit because he had been like threatened to hang himself or something when they arrested him. He was wild. Crazy kid, right? But I've seen them, and we called them turtle suits. He did not enter a plea to any of the charges. Revealed messages he sent to his Troon boyfriend thing. I think there was... Oh yeah, I was gonna read the messages here. He said, "Drop what you're doing. Look under my keyboard." The Troon went and looked under the keyboard. There was a note that said, "I had the opportunity to take Kirk out. I'm going to take it." He said, "What? You're joking, right?" Latroon said that. "I am still okay, my love, but am stuck in OREM for a little while longer yet. Shouldn't be long till I can come home, but I gotta grab my rifle still. To be honest, I hope to keep this secret until I died of old age." Okay, so that's just... You weren't the one who did it, right? He said, "I am. I'm sorry. I thought they caught the person." "No, they grabbed some crazy old dude. Then interrogated someone in similar clothing. I planned to grab my rifle from the drop point, but most of that side of town got locked down. It's quiet, almost enough to get out. There's one vehicle lingering." "Why did you do it?" "What? Why? Why did I do it?" "Yeah." And here's the hypocritical part. He said, "I had enough of his hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated out." I mean, clearly, right? Clearly, if you're murdering people, that's hate that you have that you can't negotiate out. You can't work through it in yourself. Which is weird, because from these conversations, he almost seems like sane. He doesn't... He seems far too cogent for somebody that just murdered a high-profile commentator, an innocent man, in broad daylight. He seems very cogent, very contained. Who's to say, right? I mean, I'm sure Jeffrey Dahmer could have done the same fucking thing. And he was probably, well, definitely much worse, much more degenerate and mentally unwell than this guy. Although, much more? They're both murderers, so I would say that's the same thing. But they do want to give him the death penalty, and I think they should. I think that the death penalty should be handed out much more frequently and with much less discretion, let's say. I really think that the country would be a better place. You make an example out of a few, and a lot more are going to be like, maybe I shouldn't do that. I don't want to die. But what we've done is the opposite. We've let people get away with murder, almost. We've let people get away with so much that now everyone feels emboldened. to go out and commit crimes, to go out and harm people. And then when you suggest, oh, let's turn that around. Let's hold up a mirror and go to the exact opposite. And you get called heartless, you get called evil. Oh, no, I think that enforcing the death penalty more, and for lesser crimes than just super heinous shit like rape and murder, and because people kill people every day. The fact is, the prosecutors, forgot what he said. The way he worded it, not seeing it here. But basically, the prosecutor was like, "Yeah, we're not ruling it out. Like we want to do this. We'll see if it happens, but they do want to go after the death penalty for him." But it's weird, just because it's Charlie Kirk, right? If this guy had went out and just killed a bum behind a gas station, they wouldn't be going after the death penalty for him. He probably wouldn't even have to face his whole sentence. He probably would have been able to get out on good behavior after 20 years. I've seen some cases. I've read some stuff over the years, man. People getting out on murder, people killing children, and being out after less than 20 years. PDFs getting out with slaps on the wrist. It's insane. Any sane person would look at this and say, what? Wait a minute, I thought if you did that, you had the book thrown at you. No. We do things a little differently around here. We pander to criminals. We feel sorry for them because they're mentally ill, or they come from poor backgrounds and they've been oppressed, or whatever gibberation nonsense machine liberal types like to say about this stuff. Which is why you have things like this going on more. It's not just that violent rhetoric that the left seems to have really embraced. It's the fact that, as I said, these people feel emboldened. They know that they can go do stuff like this, and there's a really good chance they're going to get a very light sentence. If this wasn't Charlie Kirk, if this was, say, he thinks this guy's a fascist or has, like, Nazi beliefs or whatever, let's go to someone that kind of does, like Don Black, for example. If this kid had killed Don Black, you wouldn't have a lot of people, either on the right or the left, that would be feeling bad for Don Black. He's not a very well-liked person because he's an open white supremacist, because he was the guy, the head of the KKK or whatever. He's not going to get a lot of sympathy. And if this kid had killed him, I'm willing to bet that he would have got off on a very, very lighter sentence. They wouldn't be going for a death penalty. But because it's Kirk, and Kirk's a centrist who has some right-leaning ideas, but he's a young man and a father, and he's kind of, at the very least, somewhat respected by both sides. And he's out there trying to bring about the exchange of ideas and the civil debate. He's not just out there spewing rhetoric like I am, for example. I'm not doing anything else other than sitting behind a microphone talking my shit. Because it's who it was, and it was done in the way that it was done, in front of millions of people. I'm sure it was being streamed live online, so let's say millions. They're going to go after the death penalty, which, like I said, they should. Based on the nature of the crime, they said. Based on the available evidence, circumstances, and nature of the crime. I assume it's because his wife was there too. I think in the crowd, or like under the tent with him or something. And you got all these people like celebrating it, you know, but oh, he had it coming. Like, really, did his wife have it coming? And I've seen people say, I saw on a where else but Reddit, the fucking degenerates over at Reddit. I'm sorry if you're a Reddit user and you're not a degenerate and you're listening to this, but you are nestled in among them. One of them did say that. Well, she knew what his beliefs were. She knew where his worldview, and still decided to marry him and have children with him anyway. So I don't feel bad for her. It's like, how can you say that, and then why? Because you said that he's evil? Wait, you're a leftist. You're probably an atheist. You can't even account for evil. So what is he doing that's really wrong in your worldview, other than because you don't agree with him? Because you have no objective morality. You can't really determine this is right, this is wrong, based from a liberal, secular, atheistic worldview. But we're getting a little bit meta. I don't want to get into all that right now. It's still sick that there are people celebrating this shit, man. You know, amongst me and my buddies, there were a couple of memes shared. Because we're kind of edgelords in a sense, but, like, you can't go and publicly celebrate this shit. None of us really were, like, happy that it happened. Now you go on to Kash Patel. I found it interesting. Because I personally think he did alright as far as this goes. I don't really know about anything else he's doing as head of the FBI. I don't care. As long as the FBI doesn't come knocking on my door, I could care less what they're doing. That's how I see it. But I think he did good, and apparently he's under a lot of fire. A lot of fire from the Democrats and from probably a bunch of leftists, like civilians too. When I say the Democrats, I mean like people in the government. Because he shared on social media that they had the guy, but then turns out that they didn't. That's the whole reason he's under fire? I think that's silly. This shouldn't even be in the news. Why am I reading this? ABC News, why are you talking about what Kash Patel is being criticized by some fucking Democrats? Dick Durbin. Well, a name like that. You gonna take anything that guy says seriously? Dick Durbin. Saying Patel sparked mass confusion in his posts about Kirk's killing. Patel stood by his performance, touting the fact that the shooter was caught in less than 36 hours, which isn't bad. I mean, I was expecting it to be, like, within 4 hours. I was thinking they would have caught him leaving the area. Honestly, after a day of seeing it in the news and saying they still haven't caught him, I'm like, is this guy really going to get away with it? And like I said, if he hadn't have told anyone, and he had been a little more cautious about maybe with what he wore, I saw that they recognized the shoes that he had on from a social media post. If he had just went out and bought new clothes, all black, just to do this, covered his face, not told anyone about it, because he told his boyfriend, Troon, he told people in a group chat, and his father saw the pictures that are going around of the person of interest, and then told him to turn himself in. And he did. He could have got away with this. He very easily could have got away with this if he was just a little smarter. But that's the thing here. Patel's saying, you know, oh, we caught him in less than... No, he turned himself in. You didn't catch him. You didn't catch him. Patel contends it only happened that he turned himself in because he ordered, against all law enforcement recommendations, the release of video and enhanced photos of the suspect. So, because you put out a picture of a suspect against all law enforcement recommendations, really? Because, you know, in my experience, when there's a killer on the loose, usually they put something out, whether it's a picture or a fucking sketch. They put something out there, or at least a description. Why would they recommend against doing that? That doesn't make any sense. I think it's silly. I think the fact that this is even in the news about Kash Patel is silly. But I also think that they did not do a very good job, because ultimately he turned himself in. I think they did fine with what they had. Kash Patel and the FBI did fine with what they had, although, you know, it's because it's Charlie Kirk. It's not like it's not like Donald Trump got shot when he was out talking somewhere. They would have caught that fucker, I'm sure, right away. Apparently it already happened once, right? He did get shot, and the kid got his fucking head blown off, pretty much. But for a guy like Kirk, it's not like you're gonna have fucking Secret Service or FBI standing around everywhere. And the last thing I wanted to talk about, because that was just silly. Can't win them all, man. This silly bitch. You need to go sit down, woman. Who am I talking to? Well, Sonia Sotomayor. Supreme Court Justice, that is. The liberal justice was speaking about the importance of civics education at a conference in New York. This one I actually want to read through and comment on a little more in depth, because the things that she said, I think they need to be responded to. I don't think we should have women in positions of power like this, but as far as women go, she's pretty even keel compared to, like, fucking Bader Ginsburg, for example, who is just completely unhinged. I think Sotomayor is not that bad. I don't agree with her politics, but she's just got a bad worldview. She's not completely kooky like some of these other women we have, on both sides, by the way. I'm no fan of Marjorie Taylor Greene. So she warned that the poor quality of civics education means that Americans may not know the difference between a president and a king. I think that's a statement that is blown way out of proportion. I have to imagine that she said it completely seriously, however, the way it's being reported here. Let's take NBC News at face value. Even though, I spent the first 15-20 minutes of this show talking about exactly why you shouldn't take the news at face value, but okay. If she was serious about it, not knowing the difference between a president and a king, well, what would you say, Sonia, is the difference between a president and a king? Because I've mentioned it before, that a king would be like the nation having a father, someone that they can have around for, 30, 40, 50, 60 years, however long, who can actually make decisions in the long term out of... And that's not to say kings can't be corrupt. Obviously they can, but ideally speaking, because I myself am a monarchist, I would say that the king is like the father to the nation, and the president is like every 4 years or 8 years, the nation gets a new stepdad. Which is kind of ridiculous when you think about how so-called democracy and the constitutional republic and the change in power. We all grew up with it. It's all we know, right? But if you really stop and think about it and observe it, and there's so many issues that come along with that most people are just going to brush right over. I can get into all of those, maybe in a different stream. I know I've talked about it in others. Sotomayor bemoaned the lack of education about issues such as rule of law, saying not enough people have a basic understanding of the power of the president and the limits imposed upon that authority by the Constitution. I would say that, Sonia, not enough people have a basic understanding of anything in this country. You have so many fucking complete tools walking around. Kind of like myself, I would like to say I'm a little smarter than most. Maybe not most, but a lot. I am a retard after all. But you got some real fucking jackasses walking around that don't know or care about anything other than their own life. How they're gonna get high or drunk tonight. Whose ass they want to go kick. What they're gonna post on social media. Who they're gonna go rob so they can get that money. Careful, don't start getting too categorical with your speech there, Sixto. Do we understand what the difference is between a king and a president, she said at a civics conference held at New York Law School. And I think if people understood these things from the beginning, they would be more informed as to what would be important in a democracy. Well, what is important in a democracy? Equal representation? What's important? That everyone gets their say? Because that's what, a democracy is, right? Everyone gets their say and then majority rules. Well, that's a very broken ideology to start with. Majority rules, I mean, when the majority of people are fucking idiots, is it a good thing to let them rule? Some would say yes. I would say we should round up all the idiots and just put them on an island and let them run their own little society the way they want to. And then the rest of us with half-functioning brains, at least, we can go back to the way things should be done, which is kind of, I don't know, anything but democracy. Sotomayor did not directly address the fractious political movement, with President Trump adopting an aggressive use of unilateral executive power. Well, I mean, as he should, right? I think that it's high time that somebody does that, and for the right reasons, which I think by and large Trump is doing it for the right reason. There's other things, many other things I don't agree with that Trump's doing, but as far as his laying down the law with immigration, with crime, with these little Ivy League, I almost said a word I shouldn't say there, people, we should rein some of that stuff in with news media, liars, bad actors in the government, etc., etc. I think it's about time someone used some executive power, because it is. It's like a swamp, and you can't make your move in the swamp. You're too bogged down. It is impossible to get anything done in the system that has been carefully constructed to protect these individuals, to protect these groups, to keep things as they are so that they can keep gaining more power and money, essentially, is what it all comes down to. And everyone else can get fucked. Do I think Trump's actually going to solve that core issue? No. But like I said, these are steps in the right direction. And to use executive power seems to be the only way to get it done. She has been a dissenting voice as the Supreme Court has greenlit many of those actions, including Trump's downsizing of federal agencies, smaller government. We can all kind of get behind that. Firing of officials whom Congress intended to be protected from political influence. There's no such thing as people in the government that are protected from political influence. The government is a politics machine. If you're in there, you're politicized one way or the other. We can't just protect you from political influence because that's our way to keep you around. Sotomayor also dissented when the Supreme Court said last year that Trump had broad immunity for his efforts to overturn the 2020 election results at the end of his first term. I'm not touching that topic. This is YouTube. The 2020 election was the most fair election in history. That's all you're going to get out of me on that one. And by me saying that, you know what I'm saying. In every official use of official power, the president is now king above the law, Sotomayor wrote in that dissenting opinion, which was released in July of last year. So people have been calling him king since before the King's rally. That's interesting. I didn't know Sotomayor referred to the president as a king above the law. Which he's not. They've already used lawfare against him. Maybe some of it was true, maybe some of it wasn't. I don't know for sure. And stressing the need for children to be educated about government, Tuesday, Sotomayor cited a poll that she said found few young people even support democracy. Well, yeah, maybe these young people are looking at it and seeing it for what it is. Like, wait a minute, why should I support this? It's a broken system. It's like all the kids in the playground come together and the majority rules. No, that's not how it works. If it was really what it is, what reality and life is on Earth, and the strongest rule, force wins. And if we're going to say, oh, that's barbarism, we should do things a little more civilly, well, then majority rules is not the way to go. Why should anyone have to do something that a majority wants them to do? I mean, hey, you guys, you democratists, I'm not going to call you Democrats because there's people on the right that are Republican and that aren't liberal that also want democracy in play. I would say that probably even most people that would listen to this and agree with me on most stuff would be like, you don't want democracy? What? Well, what else is there? What's left? As she said. Without that, what's left? Well, there's plenty of things left, Sonia. There's a lot of different ways we could take this. If there's a few young people that even support democracy, maybe the country's gearing up to move in a different direction. Is that a monarchy? I think it should be a monarchy that is in symphonia or backed by the church, the Orthodox Church to be specific. Well, I mean, what else can we go? We can go towards a parliamentary system. That's kind of democratic too, though. We can have like an oligarchy, you know, a little bit more authoritarian. But even then, you can vote for authoritarian leaders, right? Apparently, they do it with Putin. They Hugo Chavez has been doing it for how long? They keep voting him in, right? That's what they say, anyway. State-run media, you should believe them. If you believe CNN and you believe Fox and you believe whoever else about all the bullshit that they spew, why don't you believe Hugo Chavez and the the Venezuelan media that tells you that those are free and fair elections? Or we could go all the way to the extreme and, you know, put a leader in like Trump, for example, and people can be forced to call him an incarnation of God himself, like they do over in North Korea. I say the best way to go about it would, again, be a monarchy. We should have a king. I'm not saying it should be Trump, but we should have a king. The thing that happened there is when people came over to this country from England and things started getting rough with the king over there, after we won our independence, the founding fathers and the like were all pretty sour and bitter and butthurt about monarchies. So they said, let's do one better, and look where that's gotten us. Look where it's gotten us. And you're going to tell me we shouldn't just tear it all down and fuck it. The King of England can come run our country. Maybe not. No. I don't trust that guy. Apparently they're all PDFs, but, you know, I shouldn't talk about that on here either. Who would be the king then in this? If the government, our constitutional republic, aka our democracy, really fell apart. The government was dissolved. Who would be the king? I mean, a lot of people would say Trump. I know that guys like Jesse Peterson would say Trump. Me, not so much. I think that we have the OCA, the Orthodox Churches in America. I don't know if they have their own bishop. I don't know if they have their own. What's the word I'm looking for? It's right there. Oh, nope, I lost it. Metropolitan, like that. Yeah, so like the grand leader of the church, like the Greeks have Greek Orthodox Archdiocese has like Metropolitan, I think Bartholomew, or is he dead? I don't know. I don't keep up on it. I'm not a good Orthodox Christian. But that's who I think should be our king. A religious leader should be the king. Because with that power, with that worldview that comes from being that engulfed in Christianity, and already occupying a position that is, I wouldn't say powerful, but mighty, right? Orders of magnitude greater than just a priest in a church. I would say that that would be the best candidate for a king in this country. Well, second best. You know who would be the best? Sixto. Yep, that's right. Make me the king. I will make this country great again. You think I won't? Make me the king and give me an army at my disposal, and we will clear some shit up here. That's for damn sure. That's what will be left without democracy, Sonia. Me cleaning house. And I'll really clean house. We will fill the Atlantic Ocean with the bodies of the degenerates and the impure. And okay, I should calm down. I'm gonna get myself banned here. She also said, this does not mean that the American people should always accept that laws on the books should never be changed, Sotomayor said, pointing to slavery and segregation as examples. You think segregation? Oh, I don't want to get into segregation. Look, man, if it was going to happen, it should have happened naturally. We didn't need to force it. That was a terrible thing. The assumption that all laws are good is not necessarily a starting proposition. We've already experienced in this country bad laws. Well, we still are to this day. A great many of our laws are bad. They're not based in any moral framework at all. A lot of it's just regulation or ways for the state to bring in more money. There's a lot of traffic laws, for example, or gun laws, or even drug laws, which I'm not for drugs, but I'm also not for, like Texas does, where you will go to fucking prison for having weed. That's just to, bring the state more money, because they probably take that fucking weed and then they sell it back to the cartel or something. Rest assured, the state will always have their revenue streams off of criminals. Without specifying individuals, Sotomayor criticized lawmakers with law degrees who propose laws that would criminalize free speech. I think, again, some speech should be criminalized. You should not be allowed to teach 10 or 11 or anything I'd say under 15-year-old kids about sexuality or gender theology. Gender does there's no such thing. I'm sorry. You biologically are what you are. When I was growing up, the term was sex. Then somewhere along the line, they started throwing gender in. I'm like, wait, isn't it the same thing? Why are there two different terms? And now I see what their end game is. That shouldn't be allowed to be taught in schools. If you teach that in elementary school, you should be criminally processed. So criminalizing free speech isn't necessarily a bad thing. The Trump administration has also been cracking down on speech it disfavors, particularly on university campuses. Again, if I was king, there'd be a little more than cracking down going on, let's just say that. Every time I listen to a lawyer-trained representative saying we should criminalize free speech in some way, I think to myself that law school has failed, Sotomayor said. That's the end of the article. You're just going to end it with a quote? They're getting really weird about some of these articles. The way that they start them and the way that they end them. I think you're expecting there to be more. But again, as I said when I started this article, go sit down, woman. I'm sorry that Obama put you in the position you're in to where you have to worry about this kind of stuff. Go take care of your kids. You look old enough. Go play with your grandkids. Go enjoy the rest of your life without having to get caught up in the bullshit that is American politics. Why would you want to do that to yourself? And look, your gears are spinning up there. God bless your heart, but there ain't much going on. There ain't much torque hitting those fucking wheels. Clearly, if you're saying the things that you have said, that I've just quoted you on in this article, the rubber ain't meeting the fucking road. But, I mean, how old is she? Let's see. She is 71. Yeah, at 71 years old, I mean, I'm not gonna say your brain starts going that young, but it fucking could. It really could. Maybe that's it. Did I have anything else pulled up here? See, there was one or two other things, like I said, before I even got into any news today. I was like, I want to talk about that on the show tonight. And now it's gone. It's gone. My job beat it out of me. Just focus on your job. Boom! And then everything that was in my head is now all over the shop floor and then swept up and put in the fucking trash. I tell ya. Well, it's been fun. An hour and 10 minutes. I went a little longer than I wanted to. I always say I'm going to keep it quick, and then those end up being my longest fucking streams. No fucking, let's see here. Oh shit, the boys are in the chat. What's up, boys? I didn't even know anyone was fucking watching. I didn't even know you guys were watching. I keep OBS up. I don't see the fucking chat at all, because I feel like when I have the chat up, it starts cutting my mic in and out, because it does it with the intro music, where it cuts it up and down if I have YouTube up. It's a bit much. I need a better computer. I can be on camera and like bring you guys on and actually see the chat while I'm doing this. Someday, we'll get there. We'll get there. But for now, I gotta get my ass to bed soon. And I'll probably do another one in the next 2 days.